This episode of The Young Turks brought to you by Squarespace.
The Global Commission on Drug Policy released this report, and by the way, the commission is made up of former leaders from various different countries, right? And they're basically recommending that the United States and Mexico decriminalize drugs. They say that the war on drugs is failing, they're wasting their precious resources on it, tens of thousands of people are dying because of the war on drugs. We need to stop it, right? The White House looked at that report and said, no.
Of course!
They don't care at all. In fact, they released these ridiculous statistics on how the war on drugs has actually been successful. And drug drug use has decreased since the 70s, yada, yada, yada. Why don't you focus on the 15,000 people in Mexico that died last year because of this war on drugs?
Right, and the 35 to 40,000 that have died since Calderon declared war on drugs in 2006. Now, let me tell you some of the people on the commission so you understand why this is important. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, Republican top cabinet member to Reagan and Nixon, George Shultz, which I was surprised by that he was on the commission. Paul Volcker, former head of the Federal Reserve, former presidents of Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia, and current Prime Minister of Greece. I mean, this was an all-star commission, and their report was scathing. Let me read you one quote from it. Quote, political leaders and public figures should have the courage to articulate publicly what many of them acknowledge privately, that the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates that repressive strategies will not solve the drug problem and that the war on drugs has not and cannot be won. That is really strong language.
It is strong language, and I'm proud of them for releasing this study. However, several of these people were leaders, and while they were leaders, while they were presidents, they did not state these facts, okay? They did not say that they were against the war on drugs. In fact, they supported it, especially Ernesto Zedillo, which was the president of Mexico. Okay, then if you think that the war on drugs is BS, then why didn't you state that when you were the president of Mexico?
I'll tell you why.
Because it's political suicide to them, right? In their minds it is.
No. In the United States, that's how we perceive it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think they're wrong, but that's certainly how we perceive it. In other countries, I don't think that they think it's political suicide in their own elections, although that's certainly a factor, right? But the more important factor is United States money, okay? Mm-hmm. If you go along with the United States, you get a lot of money. Especially if you're the president of Colombia or Mexico, right, to fight the war on drugs. If you don't go along with the United States, you're in a world of trouble. That money's going to get cut off. Other money's going to get cut off. You don't mess with the U.S. And that's what a lot of people in this report said, and people outside of the report. In the United Kingdom, a lot of people are joining in. Sting and Dame Judi Dench and Richard Branson was actually part of this commission. Of course, he's a famous businessman, head of Virgin, etc. And they're all saying, look, the U.S. is part of the huge problem. If they won't change their laws, none of us can change our laws. So a lot of these guys are stuck in that way. Mm-hmm. And now let's look at the numbers real quick, right? The UN estimates that opiate use between 98 and 2008 went up 34.5%. So we're winning the war on drugs. So in that 10-year period, the latest evidence we have, up 34.5% opiate use. Cocaine use, up 27%. Marijuana use, up 8.5%. Does it look like we're winning? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? No, we're not winning. We're losing. Okay.
Worldwide, 250 million people are using illegal narcotics. Worldwide, 250 million people. It's failing. We're wasting our resources on this BS.
Creates gang violence, creates a culture where we imprison so many people. 25% of the people in prison in the United States are for drug offenses. It costs $17 billion a year extra to imprison those people. And then, of course, the argument you're always met with by government officials is, oh, drugs is so terrible. If you legalize it, obviously there would be more drug use.
No, it's so stupid. I hate that argument. I hate that argument for a number of different reasons. First, I don't use drugs now, right? If they legalize drugs, I'm not going to go shoot up heroin. Because I have no interest in it, okay? Right. And why do I have no interest in it? Because I'm educated on how destructive it is to my body. Now, did we ban cigarettes? No, we didn't ban cigarettes. What did we do? We educated the public on how harmful they are, and now cigarette use has decreased tremendously. So why can't we use the same types of campaigns on, the drugs that are illegal now, like heroin, cocaine, all of that stuff.
You know, it's like you read what I wrote for my MSNBC script, because I did this story on there today. Of course, that it being that format, it was incredibly quick, and we didn't have time to fit in the smoking point. But that's exactly what I wrote, okay? And so I agree with you there. But my main point is that it isn't true. Drug use does not go up when you legalize it. In fact, in the experience of Portugal and Netherlands, it goes down.
Right.
When Portugal legalized, their drug usage went down. In the Netherlands, in 2001, they legalized even heroin, which, you know, for our politicians, would make their heads explode. Oh my God, heroin! And they allowed prescriptions for heroin. Oh, can you imagine in the U.S., right? And guess what happened? Since then, the estimated number of people who are dependent on heroin in Netherlands went down from 30,000 all the way down to 18,000. Nearly cut in half after it was legalized, okay? We gotta stop this prohibition on drugs. It doesn't work. It makes the situation worse, and it creates the side problems that are actually even bigger, which is the gangs and the violence. If you want to build a website or a blog, where do you go? You go to squarespace.com.
Squarespace just pushed a brand new social widget for geolocation services. Display your most recent check-ins from Foursquare, Gowalla, and Facebook Places on a live Google map. Go to squarespace.com/TYT and get a 2-week trial for free.